So Innovation 2020 is the new government-approved strategy for research, development and innovation. It's very ambitious. It plans to double the expenditure on research and development, 2/3 of that from the private sector, 1/3 from the public sector. And in round numbers, that's about $1 billion more public investment and about $2 billion more in the private sector. So you might say that's really ambitious and it's not going to be achieved, but actually if we achieved that, we only get to the European average. The good news is that we extract more value for money than most other European countries. In fact, Ireland is the most efficient country in extracting value from public expenditure of all European countries in research. So Innovation 2020 broadly has two things: more of the same, so more Science Foundation research centres, more PhD students, more collaborations with industry, more international collaborations. And then there will be completely new things, and an example of a completely new thing is challenge-based funding. So the way you normally fund research is you ask people in universities, or often in collaboration with companies, to write a proposal, you review that proposal and you hope that there's a good impact. With challenge-based funding, you identify a specific challenge, you put that out there, then people from the public sector, that's to say people from universities, people from industry, people in the street, the general public, can participate and they can try and solve the challenge. Now those challenges can be short-term, they can be long-term, they can be economic, they could be environmental, they could be societal. Let me give you an example. A Danish challenge from Denmark would be, how do you move a container from Denmark to China at 10% less cost and 20% reduction in carbon footprint? That's an economic challenge, also an environmental challenge, very clear, and there's a solution. In this case, it's a prize, it's some money. So we will be launching challenge-based funding. It'll be new, it will engage the public, it will engage industry, it will engage society, it will engage academics, there will be teams. The prize could be finance, it could also be a change in the law. So to take another example from Denmark, for example, there's a law in Denmark that restricts the number of pigs you can keep per hectare of ground. Pigs are very important in the Danish economy, they produce bacon and so on. And there's a good reason for that law, because obviously the waste excrement from the pig can contaminate the waterways and so on. So what the government said was, come up with a way of dealing with pig excrement, either by finding a use for it or modifying it in some way, and we will change the law so that you can keep more pigs per hectare of land. So science in Ireland has a long history, and it's really got significant achievements. Probably not as well known in history as, for example, literature with the Nobel Prize winners in literature. But there have been 2 Nobel Prize winners in science. Obviously one of them, Walton, for splitting the atom. The other just last year, Campbell, for his work on developing an anti-parasitic drug for roundworms. So many contributions in the past. One of the things that Science Foundation Ireland really wants to do is to engage the public. Not just inform the public, engage the public. So you're engaged when you're interested in something, when you participate. And part of that is about our scientific past, our deep history. Part of it's about challenges for the future. Part of it's participating in science. Science has become much more democratized. I mean, in the old days, you couldn't do science unless you went to a library and read some books and had access. But now with the internet, people can read. They don't need to go to a library. And there are many things that you can do yourself, particularly in the digital era. So like many things, science has become democratized, and it's really important to engage the public. So we're doing a number of things. We're doing a partnership with RTE. You may have seen Big Week on the Farm was the first of those programs that ran out, which is about putting science into everyday life, because science is everywhere. It's in your mobile phone, it's on the farm, it's on the road, it's in the car, it's in your house. People often forget about it because it is so ubiquitous. And that's really to remind people about the importance of that, to remind people about the diversity of careers available in science, everything from working in really cool information companies like Google or Facebook or LinkedIn, through to traditional manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, ICT, software. There's a huge range of stuff, patent law, lots and lots of opportunities. And our history is really very interesting. There's large numbers of really interesting inventions. If you look at Ireland's scientific history, breakthrough stuff, but also really applicable. So if you go back in time, tractors, the Ferguson tractor, ploughs, ejector seats in aircraft. Sir James Martin invented those. Artificial fertilizer and milk and magnesia, if you've got an upset stomach, was really an invention from showing how you could solubilize insoluble minerals. So large numbers of things over the years which have pushed forward the boundaries of science, but they've also had practical application. Well, there have been many contributions by women scientists in Ireland's past and indeed in present. So if you were to look back, Catherine Longsdale, for example, was a very distinguished crystallographer. She solved the structure of benzene, which is a really important chemical for large numbers of industrial processes. Other famous woman, Annie Mauder, she took a photograph actually and defied all of the professional astronomers of the day of the way in which the sun's rays come out. She made important maps of the solar system, and basically solar astronomy was one of the founders of that. Interestingly, she went to Girton College in Cambridge, but because women weren't allowed, she could attend the classes but couldn't collect a degree. And then she went to work in the Royal Astronomy Laboratory where she did her work, and then she had the good fortune or bad fortune, depending what way you look at it, to marry the director. That meant she had to resign, but she was able to continue doing her work, and they worked together. So there are lots of stories of women who have contributed significantly to Irish science, and women continue to contribute significantly to Irish science. We have, for example, within Science Foundation Ireland, in the Infant Research Centre, the two directors are both women, Louise Kenny and Geraldine Boland. With Connect, which is about the Internet of Things, Linda Doyle, but there are too few of them, okay? So around the world, there's probably only about 10 to 30% of the scientific workforce are women. The numbers are higher in the younger era, so that's about 50-50 at PhD, but when you get into childbearing years, the numbers fall off. So we and many other agencies around the world are trying to do something about that, to encourage women to come back to science after having a career break, to encourage women to stay in science, and a large number of gender-related initiatives, really so that people can balance family life with scientific life. So there's a rich heritage. There are currently really great folks, and actually we want more of them. We want more women in science. So Science Foundation Ireland is very serious about public engagement in science. Through our SFI Discover programme, we, for example, fund about 800 outreach events around the country every year. And they're everything from science festivals. Science festivals are now in many counties in Ireland, in Mayo and Wexford. They're all over countrywide, really important, particularly during Science Week. We've also professionalised that. We've got people from science festivals all over the world to review the programme, and that also has the advantage that you can bring tried and tested events to science festivals in Ireland. Then, of course, we have a number of talks to schools, visits to schools. Every primary school in Ireland will have had a visit by either an academic or an industrial scientist, telling people about careers and the big opportunities through our Smart Futures programme. And then finally engaging the wide public through a partnership with RTE. And that's everything from children's TV, so there's a programme called Brain Freeze, which is an animation programme that we partially fund. Typically in partnership, Brain Freeze is about a third funded by RTE, a third by BBC, and a third by ourselves. And that's a sort of wacky, zany programme about a Cork professor who answers all kinds of questions in a slapstick way. Really engaging for children. And then programmes such as a Big Week on the Farm, taking science into the common everyday life. There will be future programmes coming up in the next few months on cyber security, which is on top of people's minds, you know, how you can be secure in the digital era. On big data analytics, which will look at all kinds of things. You know, there's a lot of data around, huge commercial opportunities, but obviously sensitivities, people wanting to know who's got access to, you know, my shopping data or my health data or what have you. So we plan to do all of those, to engage through outreach, particularly to engage young people, to offer from both the industrial and the academic community solid advice about the diversity of careers available in science, to engage the general public through television programs, and of course challenge-based funding will engage the public in both identifying the challenges and hopefully trying to solve some of them. So increasingly, solutions to scientific problems are coming not from the mainstream, but from outside the mainstream. And that's kind of not surprising. You know, if it was from within the mainstream, they'd probably be solved today. So there are lots of creative, inventive people. We'd really like them to be engaged. So lots of things are planned.